Chapter 5 of Black, based on Twisted Metal Black, developed by Incog Incorporated, published by Sony Computer Entertainment of America. John Doe had been banging on his door for a while now. His hands were a little red. He started yelling again. "What the hell's going on? Hey!" Still no answer. Some bad shit was going down, and he was beginning to panic. A while ago he had seen the clown run past his door, and only a few minutes later there had been some shooting outside. He couldn't see a damn thing, but he could hear a lot. A car crash, alarms, gunshots, and that kid guard screaming at the top of his lungs. And now it sounded like a motorcade out there. It was way too much, too fast. The clown did all of that, he thought. That hell clown from 3 months ago had gotten free and was going to kill everybody. Then the panic set in. His mind raced, and he began to breathe hard and his stomach tied up in a knot. He couldn't see a thing from the padded cell. It was all happening just out of sight, and all he could do was listen. He was a sitting duck. One part of his mind was tugging, telling him to get a grip. He was going to be fine. He tried to calm down. He was shaking, almost out of control. "You're going to be fine." He wheeled around. "Who said that?" he yelled. It took him a moment. He sighed heavily and looked down at the ground. "You said that," he thought. He nodded his head in agreement. "I said that." He sat slowly down at the ground. "I'm going to be fine." He began to whisper it to himself. "I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine." He kept it up, and after about a minute he began to ease up. His heart stopped racing. He looked up at the small, cross-shaped window. Faint stars twinkled in the night outside. "I'm going to be fine." It was more of a prayer now. He wanted to know he would be safe. He heard footsteps in the hall. "I'm going to be fine." He carefully, noiselessly stood up, his back against the door, and he turned his head over his shoulder to peek through the slot. He still couldn't see who was there. A timid voice came from one of the doors opposite John's cell. "Hello?" the man said. The footsteps stopped. The closed eye-level slot rattled a little bit. The man whimpered, "Who's there?" The footsteps started again towards the door. Finally, John could see the clown. Black smoke smoldered from his head, and his arms were soaked with blood. And he had a gun. John closed his eyes and begged silently in his mind, "Oh, God, no, please, God, not him." Frozen, he watched in utter terror. The man locked in the cell was a fish in a barrel. The clown raised his pistol with his right hand. The slot, he thought with horror. It doesn't open from the inside. He'll never see it coming. The clown reached out with his left hand and pinched the little tab. The man inside began to say something when the clown yanked the slot open. For a split second, John could see the man's face, pressed right up to the open slot. Then, a painful crack, and he was gone. A shriek escaped John's throat, and before he could stifle it, the clown glared right into his eyes. John ducked down and crawled to the corner of the room just right of the door. He heard the footsteps, slow and menacing, growing ever louder. They stopped. The clown wouldn't be able to see him, not from there, but he knew. The clown had seen him, and he was going to kill him. John prayed silently in his mind, "You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine." He shook like a leaf. The black barrel poked through the slot. John gasped and started to hyperventilate. It was turning towards him. He bent his head down and covered his ears with his hands. His stomach was churning violently, and he choked back his own vomit. A metal clink. John looked up. The gun hadn't turned anymore. It swung back and quickly jerked towards him again with a clink. The trigger guard was catching on the door. It couldn't quite turn all the way. The gun disappeared, and the door shook with a loud boom. A glimmer of frantic hope jolted through his body. The door was locked, and the gun was too big. He was going to live, he thought with astonishment. As long as he stayed right where he was going to live. A loud crack and an agonizing metal clang rang out and bored into his temples, and light shone through a small hole in the door. There was the clang again, and sparks flew into the cell through a new hole. Then the door slowly creaked open. The clown walked in with muffled footsteps and glared at him. The mouth of the clown's chipped mask was drawn back, its dirty ceramic teeth grinning in a sick, unchanging smile. Small, glowing cinders dotted the crown of his scabbed and burned head. The smell of the smoke filled John's nose. It was the smell of charred, smoldering human flesh. The clown's red eyes were like drills, boring into his own watering brown eyes. The smell made him puke. He began to cry and couldn't stop. The clown just stood there, watching him huddling in a corner, losing total control. The clown pointed the gun down at John's face, his drilling eyes staring right between the sights of the gun, the barrel only inches from the poor man's forehead. John's feet dropped out from under him, and he sat shaking pathetically in a puddle of puke and urine. He closed his eyes and shook his head from side to side, screaming at the top of his lungs. Then there was the sound like a gas stove turning on. The gun went off, and cotton stuffing rained down on John's head. John forced his eyes open, and saw the clown's head engulfed in white-hot flames. The clown was waving his arms, taken completely by the pain. He was firing the gun out of control, shooting the walls, the floor, the ceiling, raining dust and stuffing, and then it was empty. John snapped out of it. He leapt up and punched the clown viciously in the face, over and over, bashing against the ceramic face mask with his bare fists. The clown lost his balance and toppled over, writhing in agony on the floor. John didn't stop. No, he attacked more viciously than before, beating him mercilessly until he stopped moving. The flames snuffed out, and John stopped. The mask was badly cracked. Blood trickled out from the mask and drew thin red lines down the side of the clown's head. John stood there, breathing heavily, twitching with the adrenaline. His own hand was badly cut. He wondered, had he killed him? No, he was breathing. John let out a heavy sigh and walked over to the small cross-shaped window and took in a breath of the night air. Hands began clapping behind him. He turned around. The man was wearing a black jacket. He was looking down at the clown with a grim smirk on his face. John clenched his fists. "The fuck are you?" he demanded. The man looked up at him. His right eye was solid black. "My name is Calypso," he said, "and I think you might be interested in what I have to say."